Well, I'm Jerry, and this is What's Broke Today. Today we're going to talk about what kinds of things does Jerry work on, and what might you see on What's Broke Today. We're going to start out with is my '77 Ford F-150 that was my dad's, and he bought it brand new in '77, and now it is mine. And things on it like, while my dad was still alive, we did do the body work and repaint it, which if you look close, it's starting to show rust again, but that's probably been over 30 years ago that we did all that work, and the paint ain't near as pretty as it was back, when we first got done. But like what I'm doing to this now is taking the old ignition box out and putting in an aftermarket Intellitronics box. Trying to get it to maybe run a little better, because the old DuraSpark and the old wiring harness and connectors where the box plugged in back in the fender and where it plugged into the distributor weren't doing good. So got the new box wired in there, and I put a different pigtail on the distributor here, and then of course I got to run wires to the battery and finish hooking things up, the key wire going to the key, and tack wire all I got to do is plug it in, because this is a wire back here that I got coming off the tack that was on the coil, because of course I've got one of those big Sun Pro tacks like in the old days, and then I built a goofy looking console with a modern style radio. Just should have spent a little bit more money on a radio. That's like a $50 thing off of eBay that's touch screen, and I got some added gauges and switches for controlling things, and added some speakers in it. So even got have you ever had an old thing that like the vapor lock? Well, this thing on a real warm day does, and this is heat shielding. I'm going to put on the fuel line going from the pump up to the carburetor. So, and then of course in the future, this thing, I've got another camshaft for the motor, a 4-barrel intake, and even got a I think it's FI Tech throttle body 4-barrel fuel injection setup for this that I'm going to put on it. That'll probably be a winter project, because I'm going to be out driving it some before winter gets here. So, but that's one of my things I'm working on. Alright, adjusted the zoomed out a little bit. I got a guy brought me this is a 95 Chevrolet 3500 that has trouble with the air conditioner, and everything seems good other than I took it apart, and I got to get more into the AC box, because when I pulled this down, which I don't know, I cleaned some of it out, it had remnants of a mouse nest and stuff that they carried inside. So we got an airflow problem that when I got the cover off the bottom, I got great airflow, but when you put everything together, it doesn't come out the vents very well. So we're going to be doing that. And then of course I get quite a few four-wheelers here. So this one has been setting quite a while, and it's an Arctic Cat that's something I'll probably be working on later today after I get done with the tractor I'm getting ready to show you. And then this is I think it's a 50 or 51, but it's a Ford 8N tractor that won't start. And he's already been working on it. That he put a new carburetor on it, and then in the box here, he bought and put on a new distributor, and that didn't fix it, so he done took that off. Of course, I'm not sure he checked to see if it had spark. Probably didn't. It don't look like he did anything with the spark plugs, because they're still all rusty. So I'm going to check the spark plugs, check fuel supply, because when I looked in the tank I didn't see any fuel. So I'm hoping it didn't show up here because he ran out of gas, but that has happened before. And also sometimes I buy riding mowers, so I bought this John Deere and did a little work on it and was fixing it up. I'm going to sell it. Now I get the Craftsman rider that I was driving down the road one day, and there was a sign up on the steering wheel that said free. So I come home, got my trailer, went back and got it. That's another thing I'm going to fix up and sell. And of course I got a Cub Cadet that got a problem with the transmission, that when it gets warm it doesn't pull. So I got to look into that. I just haven't got around to that yet. And other small engine stuff. I know a guy that does concrete work. Well, he brought me his soil compactor because it wasn't running right. And of course I got an antique tiller, which it looks old, but I don't think it's really that old a tiller, but got to get it running. I get self-propelled mowers. The generator works, it sits out in the carport all the time. And of course, if you haven't seen any of my videos on the Gravely ZT42, that I've got one posted, and I'm going to be posting another one that I'm probably not going to videotape this one, because this is just like the first one where the front axle welds, the frame broke, and the frame sticking out here and the axle's not attached anymore. So I got to do that. Also got a log splitter that I put a new gas tank on it and a new carburetor, because of course it had died on and wasn't running, and he left it set outside, and the gas tank was all full of rust. That when I drained the tank, it was like 90% water, 10% gas, so it was all rusted, and there was all kinds of corrosion in the carburetor. And I finally traced down why it died on him is the low oil level sensor, the little box thing, whatever it is here for it. It went bad, so when it's plugged in, it has no spark. So I unplugged that, got it running, and then I got to go pick it up. I got to get a new oil filter, because when I had it running, the oil filter setting upside down apparently collect water around that rim. It rusted and got a hole in it, so I fired it up. It leaked hydraulic fluid. And then I was looking at the hose here, and it doesn't look real good, so I'm going to replace that. I got this and the filter I pick up later today. And then of course all kinds of mowers. This is a Hustler Zero Turn that well, that's one of the better studs, but all these threads are messed up and the studs are bent, and the holes in the hub here are wallered out, that his wheel come loose, so I got to get a new hub, new studs. And then of course he was trying to keep driving it with loose studs, so here's the hardware that holds the parking brake shoes down to the backing plate. I gotta get those, and then of course change the oil and sharpen the blades. And of course get around this direction. Then we got the wheel that came off of that Hustler that, he's wallered out all the bolt holes, and we're cracked here all the way around here, and it looks like there's a crack starting right in there area. Of course the holes are shaped like eggs, so he done brought me another wheel, so I just swapped the tire off of this wheel onto the other wheel. And then we got things like this 87 Blazer. It was like a mechanical rehab, rebuilt motor, and of course he wanted it to be reliable, so we did starter, alternator, power steering pump, power steering gear, new shocks. He bought new tires and had them put on it. I was working on the power windows, and I got to get the window in the rear gate working, and then call him and see if he wants to fix the air conditioner, because the compressor's shelled. So when I put Freon in it, the R134 that was converted to, and turned the AC on, the compressor sounded like a thrashing machine. I pulled the line apart, and the orifice tube was just full of graphite looking stuff and metal. I also do a bunch of work on trailers that most of the time it's welding, because the lawn service guys got their flop down gates with the wire mesh. I mean, they tear that up. That I got one coming in later this month that, you know, because they flip the gate up and he has his right stander sitting on the back. He don't strap it down, and those two little wheels on the back of it that kind of like keeps you from wheeling up too far push up against the gate, and it punched through the wire mesh. So got to fix that. And then of course this one, he started on it. When he got done, you know, he had big gaps and he didn't have no way to cut the board, so I got to rip this. He brought me this 2x10. I'm going to cut a little bit off it and pull out one of the 2x8s and sandwich everything together good and finish up the floor. And of course he brought me his old flooring boards that I'm going to take those out, cut them up and burn them. I also get some things that come in like this Bobcat. This thing's from back in the 70s, which it's an old 720, and it's just, you know, when they said Clark on them before it was Ingersoll Rand. Of course the Bobcat dealer says we can't get the parts for it, we ain't going to work on it. So I got it out here and trying to hunt down a part for the hydraulic pump that one of the pressure relief valves is not working properly, that I can move the pressure relief valves from hole to hole and change what direction works and what doesn't. So I got to hunt down some parts for that. And do a little bit of work on personal watercraft that try and stay away from that, because when they got runnability problems, I don't have time to take the trailer, go to the lake and do lake tests and work on them there, because yeah, I'm probably a good 30 minutes from any place I can dump these in the water and take them for a ride, because on the garden hose you can't always tell if they're running right, especially because the one on the right is a 2001 Sea-Doo. It's a 951 Di GTX model, and then the one on the left is a 2000 GTX RFI. So they're both fuel injected, and like the one on the right, the Di version, now of course it wasn't running right, but figured out it was actually a bad voltage regulator that I plugged the computer into it, and you know, had all kinds of codes for temperature sensors, throttle sensors, and yeah, it was reading high readings, low readings, but then to get to the bottom of the list, I got a voltage regulator that is, part of the time it's overcharging, part of the time it's undercharging. So I replaced the voltage regulator, and I'm waiting on you know, if you ever had one, the oil tanks in these like to split at the seam. So I've got 2 oil tanks coming and new grommets where the fittings go in, and I'll probably be putting those on later this week once the parts get here. Another thing I do is sharpen a lot of lawnmower blades. That if you've ever used one of these belt sander style sharpeners, I mean, they work really well. That I mean, I can get an edge on these that's sharp as a knife, and I can take a blade that's in really, you know, that's got a cutting edge that's really worn bad, and straighten them out, and usually get the set of blades cutting good again. But occasionally we get to a point where, and yeah, ones like this blade that I got here, might not be able to see, but it's actually bent. And then on the end of it here, and you think, how did it get worn up here? Because I've got a, which you probably don't see in the video, but it's got worn through here, and the end of it here it's almost sharp. Not to mention it's been sharpened enough there's about a 1/2 inch of material gone. So this one I told him I'm not going to sharpen, because you know, when you start getting this wear in here and this gets thin, you run the risk of, say if you hit something, you could actually break this chunk of steel off and send it flying. So I told him that this set of blades was time to throw them away and get a new set. So he did that, and then I did do a few chainsaw chains, but you know, chainsaw season's probably starting up in another month, probably sometime in October. Everybody be bringing chainsaw chains, wanting to get them sharpened up for cutting their firewood for winter that they should have cut, you know, earlier in the spring or during the summer, because it needs to dry out. Now, when we talk about other things you're going to see on What's Broke today, 2002 F350, that I have a laundry list on this, but one of the big deals, rust. I mean, let me get the camera off the tripod. He brought it here for rust repair, a starting problem, some mud flaps, and I don't know what all else. I got to look at the list, but it's a lot of stuff. But yeah, this is a you never know what's going to show up kind of project. Yeah, and that just gives you a general idea of the kinds of things you might see on here that, you know, I never know what's going to show up, that I don't turn a whole lot of things down, that like modern cars, you know, I don't get into chasing down check engine lights or stuff like that for the most part. That I'll do a few of them, and like some of the stuff that comes here, it's been someplace else. They couldn't figure it out or didn't want to figure it out, or they took it there 4 or 5 times and they didn't fix it. You know, I had a guy, well, 3 or 4 years ago, brought me a Pontiac Grand Prix, like I'm gonna say early 2000s model with a V6 in it, had the 3800. He had it up at a shop in town, and they replaced ignition module, ignition coils, spark plug wire, spark plug wires, new spark plugs. They replaced the fuel injector, did a fuel pump, and all chasing a cylinder misfire. And when he brought it, finally he stopped by here and said, hey, you know, I've had it up here, and he had spent almost $2,200 up there on all that work and still had the misfire. So I told him, yeah, just, you know, get around, bring it over, drop it off, I'll take a look at it. And of course I put my scan tool on it, which I don't have one of the fancy scan tools. I got a very basic one, so I can't do all the live data and stuff the other scanners do. But for this car, I found it had a cylinder 1 misfire. So first thing I did was, I know what already's been done, and I got a deal that looks like a doctor's stethoscope that's got a pointy stick on it that you can put on an injector and listen to it click. Well, I went to, you know, started at the number 1 and then worked my way back, and when I hit the number 1, you hear a real dull, you know, click. Then I go to the next one, and it's a nice sharp, you know, tick, 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 instead of the on the front one. So I automatically know that injector is not firing. So I decided, well, I could either figure I got to pen test the harness or do some voltage checks. And of course I subscribed with that, it's ALLDATA, so I subscribe with ALLDATA, so I can go in there and I can buy a service manual that yeah, I can either buy it for like 1 month, I think, or 3 months, or maybe even up to 2 years, depending on how much I want to spend. If I usually buy a month, it costs me $20, and it gives me wiring diagrams and schematics that, you know, you can't just Google and find on your phone or on your computer without doing a lot of research and figure out what wire's what. So I went to unplug the injector. I knew which wire was battery voltage. I take my multimeter, go to ground, to the hot wire, and I got no battery voltage. I pull off the one next to it, I got battery voltage. So I just start peeling the harness, that, I don't know, kind of like corrugated plastic off of the harness, start tracing it. I went about a foot from that injector and found a wire that broke. You know, there was no damage to the outer casing of the harness protection. It looked like, you know, it just, like you just took it and wiggled it and broke it in half. So I took a waterproof butt connected the wire back together, and actually had him up and running in less than an hour. And makes him happy. Some guy made a ton of money, and I didn't make diddly squat, but I did the right thing. And that's what one thing I focus on, is trying to do the right thing and treat everybody fair. You know, charge them, you know, I charge by the hour. I throw that flat rate book away, because a lot of times I'm dealing on something that's old. I live in the Midwest. We have rust. And when you have rust, a 10-year-old car with rust is a lot harder to fix than that car was when it was new and they made that book with those flat rate hours. Because, you know, sometimes pulling something apart that's all rusty, it ends up taking a lot more time than it did, especially if you got, you know, rusty threads. For example, a wheel bearing on a Chevrolet truck on a 4-wheel drive on the front, you take one of them, you take those bolts out of the back side and grab the hub, and it basically slides out, maybe a little bit of hitting with your dead blow hammer. Well, the next one, take the bolts out, put the slide hammer on, and just as hard as you can, and it don't want to come out, and you end up getting the torch out and heating the knuckle, just kind of swell it up a little in order to get the bearing out, and then sand it down and put her back together. So, you know, to account for all those variables, I just charge by the hour, and if it takes me, you know, I do things in 50-minute increments, you know, so if it takes me an hour, I charge an hour. If it takes me, you know, say 40 minutes, I charge 45 minutes. If it takes me 50 minutes, I charge an hour. You know, I always round up. I'm out here videotaping, making my videos, and the only person that knows I do videos and post them is my wife. So that was the mail lady coming dropping off the mail, which something must be wrong, because it's only 12:14 and she normally don't get here till, I don't know, 2 to maybe 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So she's must be having a good day, because she's way ahead of schedule. So, but yeah, that's a just on what's broke today. That it's no telling what I may be posting the video on, because I'm not going to do one on changing the oil in a lawnmower. I'm probably going to make one up on my blade sharpening, because that's where, you know, a lot of people, they sharpen their blades, but then they put them back on and they don't cut good. Well, I can kind of show you what you got to do to get around that, and you know what the blade edge needs to look like in order to cut its best. That and actually the next video I'm going to work on is I'm going to go to that 8N Ford that I showed you earlier. We're going to figure out why it don't start. So I appreciate you watching. Please, I love thumbs up. Love for you to subscribe. You could turn off all the notifications so you only look at new videos when you want to. That you know, if you got comments, feel free to leave me comments or maybe a question. Don't always get back to them right away, because I'm not on YouTube checking everything daily. That I'll get on there and I might record 3 or 4 videos and get them edited and put together before I even post one of them, because I live out in the country, so I have terrible internet. So a lot of times I got to go up closer to town where I got better internet coverage, and then I'll do my uploads there, because sometimes here at home, you know, a 15-minute video could take 3 hours because the connection's so slow, because I don't have DSL, I don't have cable. I could get satellite, but with these videos, there's so much data, I couldn't afford to do that. Right now I have the T-Mobile home internet, which works really good. It's just I'm in an area where I got a weak signal, so video uploads are slow. So, but as soon as I get them done and I'm happy with them, and of course I'm hoping every time I do a video I'm getting better, that I invested in a new GoPro, bought a few accessories with it. I got the media mod so I can have a microphone, because I'm sure a lot of times on the other videos I kept my old GoPro, that Hero 4, in the plastic case, and it muffles my voice. You almost got to be right on it to hear, and that's even with the open back on it, because it covers the microphone. Well, this, having it up in the corner, it works pretty good if I'm in front and in back. And so far this camera hasn't given me any difficulty, other than I did put the wrong SD card in it the other day, and I was recording it locked up and I didn't know that. But I figured that out. I bought the correct SD card and put in it, and so far everything's working like it should. If I get my video presentation and getting my words out to you better, well, that'll be even, it'll be great, because a lot of times I think I'm talking and trying, like right now I'm talking, thinking about what I'm going to say. But as I do these, I know it'll get better. I just hope you're patient with me and keep coming back. Thanks for watching today, and keep an eye out for some new videos.